Hi class! In this video, I will show you how to complete page 1 of the IRS 1040 form. So let's get started. Starting at the top of the form, the first thing we need to do is check a box for the filing status. And we're going to complete a form for an individual who is single. So I will check that box. Other filing statuses: married filing jointly, married filing separately, head of household, and qualifying surviving spouse. So if you're not sure about any of these or really anything on this form, there is an instruction booklet that you can go to. And let's take a look at that. So this is the 1040 instructions booklet. There is a link to it in your assignment for this week. And you won't necessarily need to use this instruction booklet, but know that it's available. And if you have any questions on any line, you can look up for more information about that. Or if you're completing your own tax return, I find it really comes in helpful and explains various things. So if we wanted to look at the information on filing status, that starts here on page 12. And as you can see, there's information for single, married filing jointly, married filing separately. Maybe we're curious as to what does this head of household mean? So we can scroll down and read about that. Generally, that applies to individuals who might be single, but they have dependent kids at home, so they may qualify for a larger standard deduction. So if you qualify as head of household, you may want to look at that information and use that for your filing status. So we come back to the 1040 form. After we've completed the filing status, next we need to fill out name, address, social security number, and that information. So I'm going to go ahead and fill that in for this form. Okay, so I've completed the form with Melissa's name, her address, and her social security number. Next up is the presidential election campaign, and we can choose to check this box or not. If you do check the box, then $3 goes to the presidential election campaign. Most taxpayers do not check this box. In 2020, I think it was about 2.9% actually did check the box. And if you check, it doesn't change your return or the amount of your refund or the amount of taxes you owe. But what it does is it directs 3 tax dollars to this fund. And most presidential candidates do not get money from this fund. They choose not to accept funds because it comes with strings attached. So you can do a little research if you want to find out more information about that. We're going to leave that blank for now. Next up is digital assets. At any time during 2022, did you receive, sell, exchange, gift, etc., any financial interest in a digital asset? And so that is, of course, refers to crypto such as Bitcoin, etc. And if you did, then you would check yes. In this case, Melissa is not involved with any Bitcoin buying, selling, etc. This is a question that's come up. It was added to the form just within the last couple of years as cryptocurrencies are becoming more and more common. And just like with other assets, when you sell an asset for a gain, that might be subject to taxes. And so the government is just keeping tabs on some of those things. All right, next up is standard deduction. Says here someone can claim you as a dependent or your spouse as a dependent. And in this case, Melissa is a college student and her parents provide at least 50% of her support. Therefore, they can claim her as a dependent. So we're going to go ahead and check that box. And I'll show you where that comes into play later on. Age blindness, she was not born before 1958. She is not blind, so we're just going to leave that. And then this section, next section, has to do with dependents. This is where you list if you have any dependents. So Melissa does not have any kids, so we're not going to list that here, but on her parents' return, her parents would list her here. All right, now let's jump down to the bottom of the page, and this is where we're going to put in all of the numbers. So to get the numbers, what we need is, to start, is Melissa's W-2. And so let me open that. So here's a copy of Melissa's W-2. Employers are required to send that to you by the end of January following a tax year. So she received this from her employer. Her employer was Scoop's Ice Cream Shop. And over here on the right-hand side, we show box 1, which is what the information we needed for the tax return: wages, tips, and other compensation of $14,225. So we're going to come back to this on page 2, but for page 1, at this point, the only thing we need is that number. So let's jump back to the 1040 form. All right, so for her income, $14,225. I'm going to go ahead and input that here on line 1A. And as it says again, total amount from W-2 box 1, and that's exactly where we got that, the W-2 form, box 1. Then there's a bunch of other income that the form is asking you about. And in this case, Melissa doesn't have any of those other types of income. And I believe in your homework assignment, these won't apply either. But if she had household employee wages that were not reported on a W-2, for instance, if she was working cleaning houses or something and met the qualifications for that, she would report income there. If she had tip income that wasn't reported on line 1, often the tip income is included in your W-2, but if you had other tip income that was not, you would put it here. Medicaid waiver payments doesn't apply to her. Taxable dependent care benefits, she has none of that. Employer provided adoption benefits, no adoptions. Wages from form 8919, line 6, I didn't have that. But again, if you're curious about what that is, go back to the instruction booklet because that will give you that information. And in this case, that form applies to if an employer did not deduct Social Security or Medicare taxes from your paycheck, which normally they do, but if there was some instance when they did not, that would go here. Other earned income, see instructions. Again, if you're curious, what does that refer to? Go to the instruction booklet. Non-taxable combat pay election, again, doesn't apply to her. So we're going to add up all of those lines, which is pretty easy to do because we just have the income plus all of the zeros. So in completing this form, it's really important just to follow the instructions. And that's sometimes students miss a box when it says add this, subtract that. Just pay careful attention to those. All right, next in section 2, tax exempt interest, taxable interest, qualified dividends, ordinary dividends. For Melissa, she doesn't have any of these, but it's something that you might have and is fairly common. So taxable interest would come into play if you have, say, a savings checking account that pays interest. And if you do, the bank is required to send you a statement, a 1099, by the end of January. So, you know, the last few years interest rates have been really low, although they're coming back up. And so maybe you didn't make enough interest before, but you might going forward. So if you did have interest, then you would put that here. The bank is required to send it to you if you had interest of more than $10. So if you had $2 or $3, $4, they're not going to send you a form. If you had more than $10, you should get that in the mail, and you want to make sure you include that on your tax return. The qualified dividends and ordinary dividends, Those would be maybe you own some mutual funds and they pay dividends, or some stocks, etc. So again, you would get a statement at the end of the year as to what those are. So IRA distributions, she doesn't have any of those. Individual retirement account, she doesn't even have one of those possibly yet. Pensions and annuities, again, she's not retired, doesn't have those things. Social Security benefits are primarily when you're retired, but some others do get some Social Security benefits, and if so, they would report those here. Again, you would get a form from Social Security at the end of the year, or say the end of January, that gives you those amounts, so you don't have to be guessing about those. Okay, capital gains, line 7. Again, so a capital gain is when you sell an asset for more than you purchased it for, such as it could be, stocks or bonds, could be, well, maybe not bonds because those would be dividends, or that. But so you have some stocks, you have some mutual funds, you have real estate. That would also go here. She doesn't have any of those, so we're going to put those down as a 0. All right, next up on line 8, other income from Schedule 1. She didn't have any other income. I'm going to go ahead and put a 0 there. Some examples of things that might go there: unemployment compensation, alimony, rental real estate income, etc. So there's a lot of miscellaneous types of income that would go there. And again, Schedule 1 is where you would find that information, and the instruction booklet also has information on Schedule 1, so you can find more info there. All right, now we're going to add up all these lines. Again, this is pretty easy to do. Our total income then, $14,225. Next is adjustments to income from Schedule 1. So Melissa doesn't have any adjustments to income from Schedule 1, but some of the things that do show up there are alimony paid. So up above, when we under income, if you received alimony, you would put it up above here on this line if you paid alimony, for instance, or if you had a health savings account deduction, that would end up on Schedule 1 and then end up here on line 10. Maybe student loan interest. So again, just some miscellaneous adjustments to your income. All right, so if we subtract that, we're still at $14,225. Next up is the standard deduction. So look over to the left-hand side, and it has the standard deduction. Single or married filing separately is $12,950. But down below here, it says if you checked any box under standard deduction, see the instructions. And there's actually a worksheet to fill out, which we're not going to do here. If even if you are a dependent, if you make more than the standard deduction of $12,950, your standard deduction is going to end up being that. So for this demonstration, I'm just going to go ahead and put in the standard deduction. And in your assignment, there'll be instructions on what to put there. So just make sure you follow the instructions. Qualified business income deduction. She doesn't have a business, so we're going to put that down. We add all these up. So her deduction ends up being $12,950. And then if we subtract line 14 from line 11, we enter that on line 15. So the taxable income ends up being $1,275. And we'll need that number when we complete the back side of the form. So this is the end of this video. For help with completing the back side, page 2 of the 1040 form, go to the next video. Thank you.